What?
So you're doing your own. You're not.
Yeah.
Doing okay.
Forget the Times
Yeah.
magazine.
I don't even know what the Times it is.
You know the Times. It's a song.
Okay.
Quit crying, girls. It's just a sign of the times.
Like Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Cool.
He was in
One Direction.
Dunkirk.
And Dunkirk.
I don't know who he is in that movie.
I know
People
who he
keep
is.
telling me he's in it.
He is.
Okay. You can keep telling me.
He plays Cillian Murphy. Just kidding.
Oh, he's very good in that role.
Actually would be a decent Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, except Cillian Murphy has been killing in Murphy for years now.
Since the movie Red Eye.
No.
Oh.
Huh. Do I only know him from Batman Begins first? Is there something else before then?
I think I knew him from Red Eye first.
28 Days Later.
Okay.
You didn't. You knew him as Scarecrow in Batman Begins.
Is Red Eye post
Yeah.
Batman Begins? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, then there you go. That's what I knew. Shall we do this show?
I guess.
Okay.
Testing.
Also testing.
Normally we do that beforehand. Testing. Also testing. That was a good impression of me.
Well, it was.
Welcome to episode 223 of the All the Books Show, recorded at the David A. Howe Public Library. I'm Eric Mickles.
I'm Nick Gunning.
Sorry, you know what I was about to do? I was
What?
about to say, also known online as Dust vs. thought I was
Go ahead.
we're doing my own podcast.
Eric's
there.
also known online
Mine
as
is
Dust versus Tweak.
Has no bearing on this podcast.
But you forgot to say we talked.
Yeah, we talk about book news, author news, and literary news.
Yep.
I just did an episode of Is It Classic, Does It Rock?
Really?
So I was just like out of it.
This is Eric's side hustle where he does a classic rock podcast. What are you guys on right now?
We just finished the last official Hendrix album.
Oh, are you going to mess with all the... Jimi Hendrix has...
No,
I mean,
we're
you did like the three.
We did the
right?
three,
Okay.
and then we're going to do a fourth episode where we talk a little bit about that last one, the Cry as a Freedom or something.
Okay.
And then just talk about Hendrix
Just
in
the general.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
There's so many just like live releases of the guy.
Oh, I know.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
That's where I can't like really follow.
It's too much. It is too much. It's like
the same
somebody
thing
following
with
him
your,
around.
with your Beatles, where you're
My?
like, these are in stereo,
My
but these
Beatles?
are in
Well,
mono.
that's
but these
true.
are the British ones, and these are the
The
American ones.
It's very different.
And these are the
Dave Dexter with that capital wow wow sound, you know?
And then you're like,
I
this
dig it.
studio and
I
this
dig it.
studio.
I like the American albums, but we're not talking
This
about
one
the
has
Beatles.
Ringo on the drums. This one has a trained monkey on the drums.
That happened.
Yeah.
That happened once. We're not talking about the Beatles or
trained
Jimi
monkey Bobo.
Hendrix today. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite books of the last decade.
Hey, why do I feel like there's monkeys news? Is there monkeys news?
Well, the Monkees, we all thought that the Monkees were basically done. As you recall, we had Michael Nesmith for the Monkees on the podcast a while back to talk
That's true.
about his literary output.
Right.
But the Monkees, Mickey and Mike, are going back out again on tour for a Mike and Mickey tour.
How exciting.
And they're doing a live album, which I'm excited about because we saw the show together in Cleveland. And I really enjoyed it. Was hoping they'd do a live album, but I thought surely the window is passed on that. But no. And the Monkees' Christmas album, since we're recording right around Christmas, is now come out on special limited edition candy cane vinyl.
Wow.
When they first put it out, it was only CDs, so I only have a CD, and I want the candy cane vinyl.
Right.
So if any listeners want to... No, just kidding. But no, today we're going to be talking about our favorite books of the past decade. But before we get into that, let's talk about the books that we've been reading in the last week.
Instead of the decade.
Yeah, just
so
the
these
last
are
week.
books specifically the past week.
We're talking about, for the spotlight, we're talking about our favorite books. We're talking about just the books we've read in the last week.
Yeah.
If any of these are going to make it. Why don't you go first?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You want me to go?
No, I mean, I don't think so that
you
any
don't
of
think
the
they're
books
going
I've
to make it
been
in the
reading
top
are
10?
going to make the top 10 of the decade.
All right.
Just give me a second.
You want, well, why don't
My computer's doing it.
Okay,
All right,
sorry.
I'm good.
Yep.
I finished Star Wars Revan. What are you doing?
Oh, so I was just...
That was weird.
I was trying to find the author of the book that I read because I didn't write it down. But anyway,
okay.
you finished Star Trek Revan, which I've read.
Star Wars.
All right.
It's going to be a rough December.
I know, I guess it is. Star Wars Revan.
I did read Star Wars Revan.
Yep.
So Khan has showed up and strikes at the...
Benedict Cumberbatch
in the
Khan? Or
yeah,
different?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
All right, no.
All right. So Star Wars The Old Republic Revan by Drew Karpyshyn is set 4,000 years before New Hope. It's set in the Old Republic era, and it's a sequel to the Knights of the Old Republic game that I played. Actually, both of them. I didn't realize it because the character shows up in the second one in this book, like halfway through. Anyway, the book would have been pretty good had it nailed the ending or had an ending at all.
Yes, I remember that.
The ending just kind of sets it up so that the Revan character... spoilers for Revan, I guess, but it sets it up so that the character can then appear later on, I suspect, in the Old Republic MMORPG.
Yeah.
It
does feel like it's hanging out there a little bit.
So it's frustrating. Though,
yes.
There's a little droid in this book.
Yeah.
And it's fate. When it's the fate of the little droid got me choked up.
Huh.
Because it's from the games, too. And I was no.
It's been a long time since I don't remember.
You would have just known the droid from the book.
Right.
But I had played like 40-hour RPGs with it. So when it was like, when the character's like, no! I was like, son of a no!
Let me ask you this. Are you doing like a wind-up to the new Star Wars movie? Is that why you picked this up?
I guess.
Okay.
It's not like the last time I went Star Wars heavy.
Yeah.
Just picking up some stuff I want to read. The problem is I just don't really care about the novels too much. You hate it when I talk about this, but I don't really care about like the Trinity, like the Luke, Leia, and Han.
No, I don't. That's fine. I understand. I get it.
In book form, because I think a lot about those characters is in the actor's performance.
Yeah.
And I think you can write Han Solo dialogue, but you need Harrison Ford to deliver it to be as fun and charismatic as you think. So like when you just read, it's like, oh boy, he sure is written as a funny character without the charm of Harrison.
I just read, remember we interviewed Martha Wells a while back about her Leia book that she wrote. And then James S.A. Corey, those fellas, wrote a Han Solo one that was in that same series with Martha Wells. And that was like a classic stop writing Han Solo dialogue. And then that last shot that came out, what was a Lando Han book, was I swear it was 90% of Lando being like, Han, old buddy. You know, it was like, okay, we don't need it. But let me just say, the Corellian trilogy by Roger Allen McBride, the Corellian trilogy, Assault on Salona, all that, great. I think that's some of the best Han Solo that you get in book form. That's my plug.
The gist is that like I've been just reading like the those character stuff. So
I've got a those characters to talk about when we get to mine.
And then I started reading Michael Crichton, The Andromeda Evolution.
Oh, you did?
By Daniel Wilson.
Okay.
I got a little quote here from The Lost World, the movie.
Okay.
So in the scene, the T-Rexes attack the trailers, and now the hunters and the scientists are teamed up to try to get to the old park that's on Isla Sorna. And so it's raining, and this is one of those patented Spielberg moments where all the characters are walking and kind of sharing little facts about themselves. And Malcolm, when you try to sound like Hammond, it comes off as a hustle. I mean, it's not your fault. They say talent skips a generation. So I'm sure your kids will be sharp as tacks. That's me talking to Daniel Wilson.
Right. So it's not doing it for you.
This is the quote I'm thinking of every time I read. Here's the thing. It's not a terrible book.
And let's just recap quickly. This is a sequel to the Andromeda Strain that's authorized by the Michael Crichton estate, written by Daniel Wilson, who wrote Robopocalypse.
That is correct. Okay. And not only that, when you say like the estate, I took a picture of it. It's a publication now. Crichton's Son.
Oh.
Crichton's Son publication. So expect more of these, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Listen, when I read Robopocalypse, I thought Daniel Wilson, I ate that book up. I read it in one sitting.
I remember this.
And I thought Daniel Wilson it read like a good Crichton novel in a lot of ways, but he wasn't trying to write as Crichton. And so reading the Andromeda Evolution, there's a lot of Crichtonisms in his writing, but they're being overdone, and it's just not, Crichton doing it. Every like 2 paragraphs, there's that one-line sentence that says like, things would not turn out that way. This would be very important later on. Or it's just like all these like, and at first I thought like, am I just reading into this? And then I just like put the book back away from me a little bit, and I looked, and there were like 5 of those one little sentences throughout the 2 pages, and I was just like, this is too much. But it was a thing Crichton would do, but it wasn't this much, or at least didn't feel like that.
That's a real that's a real difficulty. I mean, I know I've talked about this before, but the Robert Parker books that the authors picked up, some of them go so far away from his style that it's like, what's the point? And some I think manage, like Ace Atkins, for example, with the Spencer books, I feel like manages a pretty good, a fine line of it feeling reminiscent without being a copy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I don't know. Also, this is being treated so. The book we read, The Andromeda Strain, was publicated in this book, in this world, as like a report.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a lot of going back to that.
It feels like a report.
Yeah. So Michael Crichton was the person who put it out there in the book form in this one.
So, I don't like that.
There's some kitschiness.
I don't like that at all.
No, kitschiness, yeah. Yeah, I guess I just want to be like, just write like Daniel Wilson. That's fine. Stop trying to write like Crichton.
Ooh, that makes me not want to read this book.
Sorry, man.
Okay.
There's just a lot of it. It's just, it's imitation, but I mean, at the same time, it's not on the New York Times bestsellers list this week at all, and it debuted at number 12, so, who out there is also going to be like, this doesn't seem like Crichton.
Right.
Where's the Crichton to Prey?
Yeah.
Prey?
Yeah.
Because he had to
he
write about nanites. Sorry. Boy, that is a deep cut of a joke, too.
It really was, yeah. At this point, we've done, 6 Michael Crichton episodes? If they don't know,
look,
we can't help you.
Every time we do a Michael Crichton episode, we swear it's going to be our last.
Yeah.
Because the man has been dead for 11 years.
Do you want to do an ER episode? Where we just talk about ER?
So, anyways, I'll probably keep reading these books, these types of books, as long as they put them out there.
All right.
Because I'm a sheep.
Yeah.
I'm a cloned sheep like in Next.
Right.
By Michael Crichton.
No, that's not. Darn it. He's done it again,
Nom,
folks.
nom, 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 nom,
He's done it
That's
again.
an eater of the dead.
I get
but he's
it.
an eater of books.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm waiting for anything to happen in this, which I guess is also the same thing as Andromeda Strain.
Yeah,
so well done, Daniel Wilson.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I've...
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. What have I gotten myself into this
I
last
watched
week?
Frozen 2.
Oh.
Not good.
Oh, not
I
good.
thought it was bad.
Okay.
It's
What's your feelings on the first one?
It's good.
Okay.
And actually, the second one made me even like, wow, I can't believe how good the first one is compared to this one.
Oh, okay.
Too much Olaf, no good songs
That's
except
the
for
truth.
one, maybe, but there's too much of that it, and not enough like lyrics.
I see.
And I didn't think it was funny. There were no stakes. I thought it was a waste of time for both me going to see it and the people who made it. I feel bad because like technically it's amazing, and like the actual people who like animated it shouldn't be ashamed. It's like the writers; they had 5 years to make a story.
That's a long time
and
too. That's a
songs.
really long time. See, I've never really loved Frozen, and I would put it well below like Tangled or Moana. Not you?
I think I like Frozen the movie better than Moana, but I like the music in Moana.
That
better
surprises
than
me.
Music
Wow.
in Frozen.
Okay. All right.
So
you're entitled to your wrong opinions.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. What have I finished?
I don't know.
This is kind of a hot mess of a bookmark, and I'm not even going to apologize for it. So let me just start with I finished Little Women. I read this for our Christmas Classics book club. Never read Little Women before. Of course, familiar with the Susan Sarandon. Why can't I remember her name?
Winona Ryder.
Thank you.
Somebody's America in the mid 2000s.
It's very confusing. I love that movie, and we just watched the new miniseries, which we have in the collection here. I like that as well. The book just didn't do it for me. It is so sugary sweet, and everything that happens in the movie happens in here only over the course of like hundreds of pages. So I guess it's one of those things where I'm glad to have read it, and I didn't hate it, certainly, but I just found it better suited in like a shorter movie type form. So
there are no Little Women.
Don't at me.
Only little actors.
Thank you. I finished the Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man run.
Spectacular!
So volumes 4 and 5. Really, volume 4 ends it, and volume 5 is more a setup to Spider-Geddon, a big Spider-Man crossover. Chip Zdarsky's 4 volumes of this. I love it. Some of my favorite Spider-Man. So go and check this out. We don't have this in our collection, but we'll hook you up. Don't worry. I finished a couple of Star Wars books because I'm gearing up for Star Wars myself. I read Star Wars Cross Current by Paul S. Kemp. This is the only time travel Star Wars book.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't cut it. Doesn't do it. It's entirely pointless that it's a time travel story. Like there's no reason for that. And by the end of the book, it's just a completely moot point. So I read this with some friends for a book club, and we were all just kind of scratching our heads like, why do you take a sweet premise like that and then just disregard it? Doesn't make any sense. So,
isn't your book club just you and 4 golden retrievers, though?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't get it either.
And isn't it just you scratching their heads?
Yeah.
Because that's what they like?
Yeah, well, that's pet ownership. So, I didn't love this. I think it was more set up for the next book, Riptide, which we're going to do for the book club as well. So, maybe we'll see that.
Settle in.
The other Star Wars book I read was Journey to Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, Allegiance, which is a graphic novel, brand new that we have here in the collection.
What was the point of hiding that title?
What?
Lucas and Disney hiding that Lucasfilm and Disney hiding the Rise of Skywalker. They're like, we're not going to tell you what the title is for like 4 years. It's just like this does nothing.
I know, it doesn't tell you anything. Anyway, this was pretty good. It's set between Last Jedi and the new movie, and it's basically just about them trying to trying to get support, trying to get some allies. It was decent. It was nothing to write home about, but it was decent. Our good friend Shazam, Captain Marvel.
Dearest home, I have just read Star Wars Rise of Skywalker Alliance.
Allegiance.
Whatever.
Is that Little Women reading Star Wars?
No, that was you writing home about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Shazam just turned 80. Captain Marvel, Shazam's first appearance was in Wiz Comics #2, which came out in December of 1939. A couple episodes back, Eric and I interviewed Elliot S. Magan, a longtime Superman author, but one of his first gigs was writing for Shazam when Shazam was taken back by DC Comics. So go back and check that out, soundcloud.com/allthebooks, episode 189. But anyway, I read Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam for the 80th anniversary of Shazam, and it was pretty fun. I liked Mike Kunkel's first 4 issues, and then it switches to Franco and Art Baltazar, who do a lot of the other ones, and it got real crappy towards the end, so it was fine. And I don't know if you've started your Christmas book yet, because we've got a Christmas book club coming up, but I read The 9 Lives of Christmas for our Christmas book club coming up. I don't know.
Sheila Roberts?
By Sheila Roberts. And I can't talk about it now because we're going to do an episode about
Little
Christmas
orange
books
cat in the window
coming up. Yep. So we'll talk about it then. I'm currently reading The 12 Clues of Christmas by Reese Bowen, part of the Her Royal Spinus series. This is for our Page Turners book club here in the library. That's it. That's it for me, bookmark-wise. I watched a couple of movies. You want to talk movies for a minute?
Dolomite is my name.
We did watch Dolomite, yeah. And our wives didn't enjoy it. But
no.
I
thought Hillary liked it more than Kendra.
I think that's probably true.
Okay.
I think that I was expecting it to be like funny, classic Eddie Murphy again, and I thought he was good in it. And I thought the story was good and compelling, but it wasn't particularly funny outside of a couple seriously funny.
Yeah,
moments.
the funniest parts are when they are filming the movie Dolomite. And you kind of wish the whole movie was that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Kind of especially because Dolomite, was done on such a low budget and everything.
Yeah.
And brought in so many unknown people. You kind of want a Be Kind Rewind or
that's what I thought it was going to be.
What's Bowfinger?
Yeah.
Bowfinger kind of situation.
I thought it was going to be the movie the whole time.
And there's there's one scene where Eddie Murphy is fighting Denzel Washington in the movie that they're filming, and their facial expressions.
Denzel Washington?
Not Denzel Washington. Wesley Snipes.
Yeah. Okay.
And the facial expressions and the screams.
Oh,
that second scream Eddie Murphy does was like,
yeah.
It's just it's just so funny.
Really
the face.
I watched.
It's cruel. Don't watch it with your family on Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. It earns that R rating. Let me
boy.
tell you what. 21 Bridges, my wife and I saw in theaters. That was really good. Chadwick Boseman.
Is this 21 Pilots?
No. It's about a big drug bust goes wrong in the middle of the night on Manhattan, and so they close all the bridges, and they have 5 hours to apprehend everybody.
Okay.
And it is just really good. It just cooks. It's my wife said it was like a throwback to The Fugitive or those intense 90s thrillers, and that's a really good explanation of what it was. And the music, the score in this should win awards because the score pushes that movie forward more than almost anything. So I really recommend that. That was a lot of fun. Watched a sci-fi movie called 3022. Pretty good. Omar Epps and Kate Walsh up on a space station. So it was fun. You can't say too much without giving away, but they're meant to be there for 10 years and things get a little out of hand. Finally, we watched Ralph Breaks the Internet, the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph. Didn't like the first one. Didn't like this one. Neither did my son. So, 2 thumbs down for Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, my wife.
It was cool to see all the Disney princesses together with the original voices and stuff. But it was also kind of that doesn't fit with this movie. What's happening?
Right.
So,
yeah.
All right, that's it for me.
Disney sequels continue to suck.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I will defend Aladdin the King of Thieves until my dying day, but I don't want to have that fight with you right now.
All right.
I do want to have that fight. Don't think that I mean I don't want to have that fight because I do, but just not now.
Okay.
All right. Let's look at some book news. What's going on with the New York
we
Times
can.
bestsellers?
I still have some Lost World movie quotes up. You want me to just read
if you
some?
want to share another one, I think that'd be appropriate. We're just getting out of Die-November.
InGen worker. You okay, Mr. Ludlow? Peter Ludlow. I don't know. How do I look?
That's it?
That was the line, yeah.
Oh,
I guess these are all Peter Ludlow quotes.
Weird.
Arliss Howard. You remember Ludlow?
No.
He's the guy who wants to bring the dinosaurs back.
I feel because I encourage this, I feel like that's partly my fault.
Okay.
So,
he's all right. Let's do this then. New York Times bestsellers list for hardcover fiction, nearing the end of the year, but let's see who can hang on. We got Elizabeth Strout's Olive Again. Olive Again.
Here
Wasn't
you come
me.
again.
Olive Again is filmed in front of a live studio audience and is at number 10 on the hardcover bestsellers list. And a follow-up to the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Olive Kittredge. New relationships, including a second marriage, are encountered in a seaside town in Maine. Number 9 is The Institute. Not only was I tired of reading this book, I'm now tired of just saying The Institute by Stephen King is on this list.
I'm tired of it too.
It's dropping, I guess, so that's nice.
What? Why are you championing its fall?
Because The Institute was bad.
You're right.
Number 8, Nightfire by Michael Connelly, Harry Bosch, and Renee Ballard return to take up... Sorry, I ran out of steam
you're
there.
having a rough time.
Yeah, I guess I read these and I'm like, great. Number 7, The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. Sibling relationship is impacted when the family goes from poverty to wealth and back again over the course of many decades. I've got no new bit for that. So
thank goodness.
I guess that's the thing. Like, we do this New York Times bestsellers list, and then we come up with a fun concept, and then we got a bit. It lasts a good 3 episodes, and then I'm ready for that book to disappear.
Hey, speaking of things that last for 3 episodes, you had like 10 volumes of G.I. Joe Classic, and I never heard anything past like volume 3.
Huh.
What happened?
I read a bunch.
You got derailed?
Yeah. Well, it's on Comixology.
Okay.
And so I canceled my Comixology subscription.
So you lose the things that you buy, though?
I didn't buy them. They were free.
Oh, I
was
see.
downloading them for free, baby.
All right. Okay.
We'll get back to it.
All
Every
right.
now and then
I just think our
up
listeners
for like another month and read some stuff that I can't
think
read
our
otherwise.
listeners deserve to know.
More G.I. Joe comics. Wow, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Number 6, Tom Clancy, Code of Honor. Mark Cameron, President Jack Ryan, learns of a plot against America when he tries to help an old friend who has been arrested in Indonesia. So this is what I mean. Like, you got him debuting at number 6. That Crichton book can top the 10.
Huh, sorry.
Boy.
Sorry, you threw
yawn.
that to me right at a big yawn. I'm sorry.
So,
yes, you're saying that the Crichton book can't crack the top. And
yeah.
Well, I think the difference is, and we talked about this a little last week, but I think it's because Clancy has never stopped. They've never stopped being hardcovers since Clancy's been writing them, and the schedule's been up.
So you think Crichton's son should have been publishing stuff in 2009?
Honestly, I mean, if
and again, like you said, like Jack Ryan is a known entity.
Right,
and
right.
What Michael Crichton doesn't really have like a reoccurring character outside of Ann Malcolm.
Yeah.
And that was only 2 books.
Right.
And you would not want to read a third one with him.
Probably not.
Also, that character is dead in real time.
Yeah.
So
what are you going to do?
Yeah. I keep waiting while reading the Andromeda Evolution to be like, we went off and got some sign language speaking gorillas that had evolved.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I were them, I would work to create like a connected universe.
Yeah.
Why not? You know?
At this point, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So because all those stories, like this one is treating the Andromeda strain as like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Like real time happened in the 60s or 70s. And so it's just like, well, all your characters are gone then. One of the characters is the son of one of the characters from Andromeda
Okay,
strain.
so they're saying Michael Crichton was like a novelist or like a scientist?
A reporter.
A reporter.
I don't know. I can't, because the acknowledgments are written like acknowledging the fictional people for making this known.
Okay.
And so they say, and also special thanks to Michael Crichton for getting the information out there.
Huh.
So.
Interesting. Okay. Remember that super pervy book he wrote? We did a whole episode on Odds On or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It was just all like sex scenes on a beach resort.
Yeah. Number 5, Blue
Where's
Moon.
the sequel to that?
Number 5, Blue Moon by Lee Child. Jack Reacher gets caught up in a turf war between Ukrainian and Albanian gangs.
Is Brooke Shields in this? Or
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Blue Lagoon.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Number 4, Twisted 26 by Janet Ivanovich, the 25th book in Stephanie Plum's series. A New Jersey gangster's associates go after a bounty hunter's widowed grandmother.
Does Brooke Shields play the grandmother?
I guess she could at this
She
point.
could,
huh?
yeah.
Number 3, The Guardians by John Grisham. Cullen Post, a lawyer and Episcopal minister, antagonizes some ruthless killers when he takes on the wrongful conviction case.
You don't want to antagonize ruthless killers.
Case. I said case.
You did.
Number 2, Where the Crawdad Sings by Delia Owens. Quiet town in North Carolina coast in 1969. A young woman who survived alone in the marsh becomes a murder suspect while also fending off the Andromeda strain.
Is it the Dutch house where the family's poor and then rich then poor again?
Yeah.
See, I'm having a Dutch house scenario with Where the Crawdads Are because I was bored by it and then I read it and was kind of like, okay, it was fine. But now I'm back to being like, just shut up. I don't want to hear about it anymore. So it's kind of like a rich, poor, rich thing.
So you're bored with this.
I'm bored with hearing it again.
You're bored with where the crawdads say being on the list.
It's the back and forth,
Okay.
much like in Ann Patchett's The Dutch House.
Right.
But I've come back around to being bored with hearing about crawdads now.
Okay.
So,
well, number 1 is A Minute to Midnight by Bastille, the band. No, just kidding. A Minute to Midnight by David Baldacci.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Real boring list.
When Atlee Pine returns to her hometown to investigate her sister's kidnapping from 30 years ago, she winds up tracking a potential serial killer.
I think you got to do it sooner than that. They say if you don't find in the first couple of days.
Dark.
You know, just saying 30 years is a long time to wait before she's like, I'm going to look into this.
Right.
All right, is that it for the New York Times bestseller list?
Yeah, that was number 1.
Did you find those boring?
Yeah.
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 Well,
I don't know. I mean, we've got a lot of people here. You know, I'm happy for everybody who's picking up a book. I'd rather they read than not read.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm tired of seeing The Institute. I'm tired of talking about North Carolina towns.
Yeah.
Maine towns. I'm tired of Maine and North Carolina.
As fiction centerpieces?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully things will change. Now, let's let's move into our segment. Are you ready for that?
I guess it makes sense. No, never mind. I won't share that.
Okay. Well, it's the end of we're coming to the end of the year. We're coming to the end of a decade.
We're going into the age of Aquarius.
That's true.
Aquarius is in the seventh.
Okay. What do you call these? The teens? Is that what you call
what we're going in?
Yeah.
What we just finished?
Like 50 years from now, we'll be like, remember the
2010s.
I don't think you'll say that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you say the 1910s. You probably say the 2010s.
Okay.
I'm going to call this the 2010s.
All right.
All right?
Yeah, we're in the 2010s.
Looking back at the 2010s. So there are many lists online of experts saying what they think the best books of the last 10 years are.
Screw them.
We're not going to do that. We combed back through our personal book reading histories and came up with books that we liked the best that came out over the last 10 years.
Goodreads did not make it easy.
That's true.
They're go into your stats to look at all the books you've read and then click on by publication date. Yeah. It is disgusting.
It is.
It's just a bunch of dots.
It's a nonsensical
graph. If you
graph.
dare to read more than one book a year, that thing is useless.
Yeah, forget about it.
It looks like a Crichton graph.
I was just going to... You beat me to it. You beat me to it.
There's graphs in Andromeda Evolution.
Anyway,
that's the thing too. Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about some of our favorite books over the last 10 years. Not saying these are the best books that came out in the last 10 years, but just our personal favorites.
That's true.
This was kind of a fun little walk down memory lane.
It's true.
I was kind of going through looking for my 5 stars and the things that stood out to me and being like, oh, yeah. Most of them I wasn't surprised about. There was a couple where I was like, 5 stars? Really? Yeah. Really? So
I went to Goodreads.
Yeah, I
clicked on 2010 to see all the books I read, and I went through like the 4 and 5 stars.
Yeah.
And I just clicked on them, and then we're hoping they were published in that year, and then I just kept going up.
Yep.
So there were a few books I'm like 2009.
Similar for me.
Come on.
All right. Well, do you want to just dive in?
If this was the 2000s, I would have killed it.
Okay.
I would have been so good at this one.
I'm gonna jump in with
start,
my first option here. This is one we've discussed on the podcast.
Wait, so are we starting at 2010 or 2011?
Oh, I did not do that.
What?
I did not do that.
What do you mean?
Did you do a favorite by each year?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't do that. I just did over the last 10 years my favorites.
You didn't pick a favorite book for each specific year?
No. That's okay though. That's all right. Mine is 2011. I didn't have a 2010 anyway.
Okay.
So
really? You hadn't read anything in 2010?
Not that I think was worthy of making my list of the best.
Okay.
All right.
That's a crazy... All right.
Do you have a 2010?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead then.
I picked I'm Not a Serial Killer by...
Dan Wells.
Dan Wells.
Yeah.
It was...
You love that book.
It was spooky. I made a mistake of reading it a weekend where no one was at the house with me, and I would just lock all the doors and turn off all the lights, and then I would just lie there and be terrified.
Wow.
So, yeah, I would say the 2010 book that I read, I Am Not a Serial Killer, was my favorite of those that year.
Favorite. Okay.
Being published. These were not read those years.
Oh, okay.
But it was published in 2010.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
You know what? I found one. I do have a 2010.
It's happening.
I've talked about this series so many times that I don't want to bore people with it, but Ken Follett's Century Trilogy is really one among the best books that I've read in maybe my whole life. It's such a captivating look at a century of history covering, multiple continents and countries, generations of families, characters interacting in ways that you don't expect. And what's so amazing about it is that the first one, Fall of Giants, covers World War I. The second one, World War II. And the third, the Cold War. The third's the weakest link. I'm not going to lie. The third one would not make this list, but the first two definitely do. And what's so amazing is the sheer number of characters and locations and relationships but he writes it in a way that like they click with you, and you really come to know these people. And as the generations pass and the characters from the first book become the secondary characters to their kids in the second book, like anytime you get a little shot of that original generation, it just really was an incredibly successful trilogy. They're huge. They're massive books.
So this is just Ancestry.com, the series?
Yeah, exactly. They're about 1,000 pages each.
Yeah, I read Pillars of the Earth.
Oh, God. I hated Pillars of the Earth for what I got through. And again, God bless you for making it to the end. But the Century Trilogy, if you're a history buff, I don't even think that's necessary, but if you're a history buff, then definitely you'll like these. But I think just story-wise, they'll hold you, and he does such a good job of giving you the environment that you don't really have to have a ton of insider knowledge on World War I to enjoy these. But Fall of Giants, Winter of the World, and what is that last one called? Do you have that up there?
No.
Fall of Giants, Winter of the World, and Edge of Eternity.
Oh,
again, Edge of Eternity is kind of a stinker, but only because the Cold War is not as thrilling as actual warm.
Roger Moore would have something to say about that.
Would he say something differently?
Yeah.
All right, so that's my 2010.
Remember when Judi Dench is like, I missed the Cold War?
Yeah.
That's always a funny thing to hear.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then, for me, where are we? We're in 2011 now.
Yep.
So, was 2011? Yeah. 2011 is tricky for me. So, it was a pretty good year for some sci-fi books. Leviathan Wakes, Micro, and so Leviathan Wakes by you just said their author's name.
Did I?
Yeah. The two
James S.A. Corey, sorry.
James S.A. Corey, Micro, which was the last official finished, the last Michael Crichton book that was written kind of while he was alive. And Robopocalypse by Daniel Wilson. Micro and Daniel Wilson.
Hey, there you go. Right there.
But I think I'm going to have to give it up to Ready Player One.
Really?
Yes.
Is that Ernest Cline?
That's Ernest Cline.
Okay.
I think I wanted to give it to Robopocalypse. I wanted to give it to Leviathan Wakes.
Okay.
Because I did love that book. But I think, there we go. I think with Ready Player One, I just devoured Ready Player One in a weekend, and it scratched a whole lot of buttons. It kind of inspired some things. I don't know, future reading in my own reading. It inspired some stuff I wrote and whatnot. I just really ate it up. And yes, it's been it's looked back a little less fondly now because of how much it's just a list at times of things that the characters read and maybe geek bragging and whatnot. But I don't know. It's just a Cline is just excited about all the stuff he just made a book about all the stuff he likes. And, you have to go in expecting that. So I think it lost a little steam. It's beginning of the third act, but it had me the whole time.
Okay.
So yeah.
How does it compare with the movie?
They're different. They're different challenges.
Okay.
Different games play different roles and whatnot. So, but for the most part, the spirit's there. The Shining is not in the book.
I see.
So
yes, it was in the movie.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's it. I really liked it.
I
watched The Last Starfighter and War Games because of reading this book. So
I love War Games.
Yeah,
I've never seen The Last Starfighter. For me, 2011, I have to give it to Stephen King's 11/22/63. So this is, this is another massive book, and it's about a man who just kind of stumbles into a portal that takes him into the 1962, and they come up with this plan where if he can just get there and live there for a year, we know all the specifics about how the Kennedy assassination supposedly happened. Right. Wink. And he's going to get there and stay and stop it from happening. But if he goes back, time resets, and so he loses all of that. And so it just becomes this thing where he's pushing forward, and if something happens, he's got to go back and start from scratch. And so the book, it's massive. It's, again, it's almost 1,000 pages. And it worked for me on multiple levels. I mean, I love time travel. I love the way it's used in this, where it's a very, it's not super scientific. It's very much in the style of Jack Finney, which Stephen King acknowledges in the end that Jack Finney, who wrote Time and Again and other things like that, was a major influence on this, and you can feel that all throughout. So as a fan of Jack Finney, as a fan of time travel, as a fan of JFK and that whole situation,
fan of the JFK assassination?
I'm a fan of like JFK and Bobby Kennedy and just that whole era. I feel like the promise of that era and the tragedy of that era is interesting for me to read about. But I think this book just worked for me across the board. So I've read Stephen King books where it's The Institute's a perfect example where the pages feel like every page feels like 10 page. This was the opposite. 10 pages felt like one, and I breezed right through it. So I love it. What do you got?
All right, so for 2012, I thought about picking Cinder by Marissa Mayer because I did really like it, and also Scarlet, but I haven't finished the series. But I'm going to give it to Silver Linings Playbook by Matthew Quick as my favorite book from 2012. So, again, I was just reading this so I'll mention this one more time after this as well. I was writing a book or a story or whatever. I was doing like NaNoWriMo at a time. And Silver Linings Playbook and another book that are coming up and Ready Player One were all very like influential on that. I just loved the story of Silver Linings Playbook. I owned the movie for a while, and then I was kind of cleaning out stuff. I'm like, I don't really. The movie's fine, but it's too condensed and it focuses on some things that I'm like, that's not. I don't know. I just really like the characters in the book. So I still have the book, and I just think it really struck me a lot of times. So.
Yeah, I remember that. I agree. I think both the book and the movie are great. It's one of the few times where I actually kind of prefer the layout of the movie better than the book. Like I like the way things come together in the movie a little bit better, but I think they're both excellent. So,
right.
Good choice.
So yeah. There you go.
For me, 2012, this is one that we did for a book club here at the library, one of my early book clubs here. And it was it garnered such conversation, and the whole time we were reading it, we just didn't know how to feel about it. It's The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman. So if you don't know this story, it's kind of a tough read, honestly. It was a Goodreads Choice Award winner in 2012 when it came out, but it's about a couple who are on a lighthouse. The wife has a miscarriage, and then shortly after, a baby in a rowboat washes up on the shore. And they don't have any way to communicate with the mainland and all that. So they end up taking the baby in. And by the time they can communicate with them, they decided, well, everybody knew she was pregnant and there's a baby. Right. And obviously this baby doesn't have anything. And so then the story progresses. And then you kind of find out a little bit more about where this baby came from. And maybe there's some roots that this baby has that should be honored. And so it becomes a real like moral and ethical dilemma of what should happen, what's the best for the baby, what should happen, who's right, who's wrong, and it just is unresolvable. That's what made it so interesting for the book club, because we really just couldn't come up with like what we wanted to happen. And for a book like that to stick that landing where you don't feel good about it, it feels ambiguous, it feels like nothing could possibly happen to resolve it in a satisfying way. To end a book like that and have it still work, I think is really impressive. So that's why this one made the list for me. It's a tough book.
2013. I almost thought about giving it to Kenobi.
Oh, yeah.
The Star Wars book.
Yeah.
Decided against that. Also decided against giving it to Dr. Sleep because I could never read Dr. Sleep again, even though I liked it. So I'll actually give it to the nonfiction book by David Ewalt of Dice and Men, the story of Dungeons and Dragons and the people who play it. It was just one of those, I don't know, somewhat travelogue, somewhat history, kind of inside look into, Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. I really liked it. And I've read a few, like, the history of D&D books afterwards, but I think this one was the most successful that I read. I read that Gary Gygax, like the Imagination one, and that one's very, one-sided and whatnot. This one I really liked. It made me appreciate the hobby even more. So it was cool. I keep trying to get other people to read it.
No takers on that?
No takers.
It's a very specific audience, I guess. Yeah. So I don't actually have a 2013. I didn't have a book that I felt like I read during that year that tiptoed up
2013
to the top there.
Was the year you spent on a jungle cruise.
That's right.
I remember.
I was on a jungle cruise. Yeah. So, wait, are we on 2012 or 2013?
This is your 2012.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to give this one...
No, wait. Now I'm confused.
No, I think
this is your 2013.
It is my 2013, yes.
Goodness.
All right. So I'm giving this one to a book called Domestic Violets. That's violets like the flower. Written by Matthew Norman. So this is one that I read in 2013, though it was actually published in 2011. I stumbled across this one just completely by accident. I wasn't familiar with the author. I didn't know anything about it. I like the cover. I like the synopsis. And it's basically about a man who I think he's an ad exec or something like that. He just has kind of a dull life. And his father is this beloved author, and our main character is trying to get kind of off the ground with his own writing career, and just like can't quite seem to get it. Like, people just won't pay attention to what he's doing because he's always in the shadow of his dad, and it's really just about him sort of navigating his life and seeing, kind of coming to grips with the choices that he's made and finding a way to make life work. And it's quirky, and sometimes that can be off-putting, but this nails it really well. Like, the characters all feel really real and really grounded. It's very relatable, and it's just, you follow them the whole time, and sometimes he makes horrible decisions and you're like, stop, what are you doing? But it just really worked for me. So again, that's Domestic Violets by Matthew Norman.
Okay.
Do you remember years ago when we were doing that thing where we'd give each other books to read and then we would report back on them? I think we only actually did it once with Starship Troopers.
Once or twice. Yeah.
Okay. This was the one that I gave you last time. You gave me White Fang and I gave you this.
Did I ever get my copy of White Fang and Call the Wild back from you?
No. It's right there on my shelf. You're welcome to it. Although I'm still game to do it. If you want to read Domestic Violence, I'll read White Fang. All right. Take it away.
All right, so for books published in 2014, this was also kind of rough. There's The Crossover by Kwame Alexander, which is a constant recommendation for me for kids. There was Console Wars, the history of Sega and Nintendo, which I had put off for reading for a long time, but then when I did, I just couldn't put it down. There was The Three Body Problem, which might be a little bit too dense for its own good. And there was also The Martian by whatever his name is, Andy Weir. But in the end, as much as I thought it was going to end up in The Martian's hands, it goes to Station 11 by Emily St. John Mendel. So we did this for a book club here.
We did, yeah.
And I was the only one who liked it.
That's true.
And I loved it. And actually, I still, the opening of this book still stays with me. And I still find myself thinking back to a lot of the different settings and stories in this book. So kind of a post-apocalyptic, but I don't know, a soft apocalypse kind of story. You're not going to have to read about, like, it's not like Mad Max or anything. I just really liked it. So I don't know. It was more, its prose was written almost in poetry a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things that put me off about it. I was expecting a more straightforward kind of book, and I think, like, by the time I sort of got a handle on what they were going for, I was already kind of like out of it.
Yeah.
So it never quite landed for me, but it's being adapted right now, isn't it? It's being adapted for something.
Oh, maybe.
Like into a series.
A show or something, yeah. Doubt that will be as good.
Wow.
But
you heard it here first.
So might have given it to The Martian, but Station 11 has, like, stuck to me more.
Okay.
Whereas The Martian was just kind of like was more of like a thrill ride.
Okay.
So your turn. I almost said up yours, but it's your turn.
Oh, I see.
So
up yours.
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. I've got a two-way tie for 2014, and it rolls right in with what you're talking about, because one of them is The Martian.
The Martian
by Andy Weir. Although I almost feel like I need to take that away from him for Artemis.
Yeah, no kidding.
His follow-up.
Yeah,
which is
never thought you could you rescind an award from somebody's, like, later crappy work.
Oh,
like, great
so
Mona Lisa,
bad.
but we sure hate this.
Artemis
can
is
of soup,
just
Lisa.
I don't know.
Yeah, this isn't the Artemis book.
We're not going to talk about Artemis. We're going to talk about The Martian. The Martian is, I really feel like it's one of those books that kind of changed the genre a little bit, because I don't think there was a book like this before.
I mean, it's definitely, like, the most accessible hard sci-fi book that I can think of.
Yeah,
period.
And that's exactly it, because it doesn't shy away from that at all. You get a ton of science and numbers.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's almost Andromeda Strain level, like science heavy, but the character is just so good. Like, the very first line, I'm pretty sure he drops an F-bomb in the very first line, but right from the start, it just grabs you, and is a book that is just, it manages to be hilariously funny and, like, deadly serious at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It just, that thread goes through the whole way, and you're just with the character on this journey, and the writing is just so evocative of the isolation of it all, and you feel like you're there with him, and you feel like you're really, like, invested in it and rooting for him. So The Martian. My other one for 2014, because I refused to make a decision between these two, is One More Thing, Stories and Other Stories by B.J. Novak. So this is a collection.
If you're just going to pick two books that are the same genre, why even
They're
pick
not the
one?
same genre.
They're both hard sci-fi.
No.
The Martian's not hard sci-fi?
It is. Stories and Other Stories, One More Thing by B.J. Novak is a hilarious collection of flash fiction. So some of these it'll just be like a paragraph, some will be a couple pages long, one will just be, half a page, a couple sentences, but they just kill. I don't think there's a bad one in the bunch. I honestly feel like this might be the best thing I've read. And I really think it is. It is so...
In the history of humans, nothing has topped Stories and Other Stories.
It's honestly, it's so fresh and it's so clever and just, it hits everything it attempts to hit in a way that I don't know a lot of other books that I could really say that about.
Okay.
So, it's different because, it's a short story collection. It's not a novel or nonfiction. So it's kind of, in a separate genre there, but I have nothing but good things to say about this. And if you haven't read it, you definitely should.
Okay. 2015. There's a couple of YA books I almost gave it to. Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, that's a Star Wars book.
Mm-hmm.
Adrift, which was that story about the kids that got lost in a rowboat out in just the ocean, dealt with sharks and other issues. And this war, The War That Saved My Life, which was the story of the girl and her brother who goes to live with the woman during World War II. And they're kind of abused at home. And now they get a real life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to Jack of Spades.
Joyce Carol Oates.
By Joyce Carol Oates.
Our friend Joyce Carol Oates.
Short read, more of a novella. A novelette.
Yeah.
No, novella.
Well, it's about 200 pages.
All right.
It's
well, however
there.
long that is then. That was a book I read for Halloween. I think I read it 2015, right? Is that when it came out? That is when it came out.
Yeah. Well, I actually think it was 2014 because you read it when Joyce Carol Oates was coming here, and that was 2014.
No, that was 2015.
2015, I said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, 2015. I just read this for Halloween 2015, and it was spooky. It was off kilter. The character was crazy, but a lot of times in a funny way, even though he made some terrible choices and did some terrible things.
Yeah.
There's one issue where he's trying to find a cat outside of a dead woman's house, and it's just 2 lines. It's one of those paragraph breaks. It's just 2 lines, and it's just hilarious.
Yeah.
But the ending has really stuck with me. Yeah. So yeah,
it's a powerful book. When she and I were chatting backstage before one of the events, which was here, and I told her this is the only book that's ever actually given me a legit nightmare.
Right.
Because the way he breaks from reality is spooky. You know, it's really, and a lot of it is about somebody taking the other person to court, claiming that they wrote. Remember
book.
that? There's a whole thing. And Joyce Carol Oates said that she wrote that because that actually happened to her.
Right.
This kooky lady came in and said she's stealing all my work, and it actually went to court and was a whole thing.
Right.
And so she, used that for the book. So you can see some realism in there. 2015 for me, this book was everywhere. It was completely inescapable, and that's The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins.
Too dark for this guy over here.
I know.
No, thank you.
It's such a compelling mystery.
Didn't I read this before you? Was this book club for you?
It was a book club.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This was one that I think just everybody read. Everybody in the world.
It was the Gone Girl of that year.
Pretty much. Yeah, it was. I think the cover even said that, right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
But this just worked so well, and it was something that I think this more than Gone Girl, this book had so many people trying to capture the magic in the bottle. You know what I mean? You just had so many. Look, I have another drunk heroine.
Yeah.
You know? And it just, nothing ever quite hit the same levels as this one, though I have another one I'm going to talk about that people might take me to task on. But Girl on the Train, I think, is deserving of the hype that it gets. I don't think the movie really lived up to the original story.
I don't think anyone thought so.
So don't be put off by the movie. I think the book is it's exceptionally well written and very compelling. Very compelling. So I got to give it to that.
All right, 2016. Thought about giving it to Lovecraft Country.
Oh, I remember that.
Because it took me a while to understand what the book was doing in terms of it being a collection of stories that all eventually lead to kind of a finale. But I'll also, I think I'm actually going to give it to Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sapitis, which is a story of 4 different youths during World War II trying to escape escape the war, and they're on one of those. They're on the boat that's actually. I can't remember the exact stats, but it's like the death count was worse than the Titanic on the boat, and it was mainly like people like leaving. It was a civilian ship, so kind of has that you can't look away disaster story situation. But it was one of those things where each character gets their own chapters. So with 4 characters, it really did move. It's kind of a thick book, but it kept my attention the whole time. And it was a young adult book I was reading for work that I was reading at home, which is usually a good sign.
Yeah.
So,
okay. I'm gonna jump ahead here for a minute because this ties in with the one I was just talking about, and that is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. So this is one that I think had a reputation of being just trying to like recapture that girl on the train magic, but I actually think this one had enough to separate it that just it really worked for me. It was about a woman who it's kind of a take on Rear Window. Like there's a little bit of that going on,
right?
But there's a lot of things going on in her life, and you start to realize she's a bit of an unreliable narrator.
Right.
The things that you've kind of believed for the whole book, you start to question. You don't know what's real, what's not, and I think. All of that. There's many books that can do that. They can kind of throw you off like that. But I think that what kept this one from just being another one was the mystery. The central mystery was clever and twisty in a way that I didn't see it coming. And I thought that all the pieces came together at just the right time. It wasn't like you figured it out 100 pages before the book ends, and it wasn't like you end and be like, what? Like it all really hits in a perfect spot as you're reading it, and it just. I think it really lived up to the praise it got at the time, and so that's one of mine.
2017, kind of a light year for myself in terms of just reading and books that I gave like 4 or 5 stars to. Almost gave the award to All Systems Red by Martha Wells, but I'm giving it to Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders, and The Birth of the FBI by David Grann.
That was another that was on the top 10 list.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
And basically giving it this spot because it's a nonfiction history book, which isn't something that I normally read. Nor do I normally read something about like the murders of a indigenous tribe, indigenous people, or like the birth of the FBI. But it was very compelling. And I mean, this thing is history, but at one point they revealed who had been responsible for some of the murders, and I gasped out loud. I'm like, oh my gosh, but we trusted him. He had such good intentions. No. He was a bad guy. So yeah, it was good. It had a lot of information. It read again like a thriller. It's supposed to be coming a movie or something involving DiCaprio and Scorsese in some capacity.
Oh, interesting.
So probably more of like a producer credits kind of situation.
Okay.
But yeah, I was shocked when I read it, and then when I was looking at my list, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that has to be it. So.
Mine for 2017 is one that you actually recommended to me, was Exit West by Mohsen Hamid.
Oh, yeah.
So this is it is technically sci-fi. You have 2 characters.
Sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah, in a country that's right on the edge of civil war, and they're kind of trapped. They have nothing that they can do with their lives to escape. They're just there, and then they find a doorway that leads them to another place where they can have a little bit more freedom, and how that changes their relationship and how that changes their outlook and perspective going forward really informs the rest of the book as you see them dealing with, freedom really for the first time. They have this new path before them, and it doesn't go the way that any of the characters expect it to. And I just thought the journey that they take is really interesting to me, and the characters were really vibrant, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah. I did too, but the second half is what kind of didn't do it for me. I guess the part where they were just like stuck and they couldn't do anything. I thought the book lost some momentum, but I also understood it was like, well, that's also how the characters feel. So I guess good job there. 2018. Thought about giving it to Contagion, which was a young adult book. Thought about giving it to The Loneliest Girl in the Universe, which was a young adult sci-fi book. So
we interviewed author Lauren James a few episodes back, soundcloud.com/allthebooks.
But the book I actually gave it to is Love Poems for Married People by John Kenny.
This was one that Malik, who's on staff here at the library,
we did like Poetry Month. We talked about it for an episode.
Malik writes poetry and is pretty well versed.
What?
So I just made a pun.
He's pretty?
Sorry. No, you missed it. Well versed, like poetry.
Pretty well versed.
Anyway, so for Poetry Month this last year, we asked Malik to find something for us to all read together and discuss, and he chose this one, and I loved it too. So yeah.
It's just very funny. A lot of the things still stick with me, and I'm not going to say which poems affected me this way, but there are some actions or things I used to do that now I've tried to not do anymore.
Well,
after reading this, I'm like, I shouldn't do that anymore.
I guess your wife can thank Malik and the author of this book of poetry.
After reading, some of the lines were like, there's one where the wife is talking about her husband peeing with the door open, and she's like, every time you do that and you wave at me, I die a little. I die. And that I die a little has stuck with me. It's so funny. So
you were a door open?
No, not me.
I see.
No, that door stays shut.
Okay.
I don't want to talk to people when I'm in there.
I agree.
If I could, I'd have a deadlock on the bathroom.
Okay.
So I don't know why we don't.
Yeah.
Deadlock bathrooms.
We should.
If any place should be, it should be that one on both sides.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple for 2018 here. They're so different.
Okay. Listen to this Renaissance man.
The first is David Sedaris' Calypso. So this is one, I talked about this at length back when I was reading this, but this is David Sedaris writes these very personal essays about his family and growing up, and so having read all of those up to this point, I feel like I know this family so well and know him so well that this felt like sort of a, I don't want to say end cap, like he's never going to write about this again, but in a lot of ways it just felt like this epic conclusion to all those stories that I've read before, and it kind of served to unite all those stories in this one big narrative, and to see, this is the older generation passing on and things happening. It just as a fan of his writing in these books, and have gotten to know his family over the last 10 plus years, I just found this to be a very moving book. Again, I don't think that I don't think this should be your first David Sedaris. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
If you've never read his other stuff, I would say probably start with Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim, or even Me Talk Pretty One Day. Don't start with Calypso, because I just don't think it'll land for you. But as a fan, I loved it and recommend it to other fans. And then a novel that I read was last year's Goodreads Choice Awards winner, I think in historical fiction, was The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. So Kristen Hanna also wrote The Nightingale, which I was not a fan of.
That's true.
But this one is about a family
post
Vietnam War. They got nothing going for him. The dad, who is a problem, inherits a bit of land from a friend down there.
Right.
And so they're like, well, we got nothing else. Let's just go down to this shack in Alaska. I said down, but it's really up.
Right, yeah. And to the west.
Yeah, that's true.
Northwest.
So they head out to their Great Alone,
and
really just kind of homestead in Alaska. And, the dad's dealing with PTSD, and the family's just kind of trying to make do at a time when that's not really a thing you talk about. And I don't know, the way they have to figure it out, just something about it really spoke to me. My wife's read it. A few friends have read it, and nobody's liked it the way that I have. So I don't know. I guess.
Well, the Goodreads Choice Award will agree with you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although I think a lot of that was name recognition. I think that was
sure.
You click there because you know that name from The Nightingale. But anyway.
Goodreads Choice Award is the voice of book rewards.
Yes. Yep. Voice of the people.
No, the voice.
Oh, I see.
The show.
I see. I understand.
Sorry.
That was my 2018. You got a 2019?
I sure don't.
Oh, you don't?
I haven't read a single book that was released in 2019 this year.
Really?
I've just been reading things that were published after then.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Yeah. I wanted to. I tried. Part of me was like, I guess this Andromeda Evolution wins by default at this point. So until it's taken back. So
all right. Well, then my final one is Being John Lennon: A Restless Life by Ray Connolly. So I've read a couple other Lennon biographies in the past.
It was cool that they were making the movie Being John Lennon, and he agreed to play the role in the self-deprecating way.
I don't get that reference.
Being John Malkovich.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Anyway, I've read some other John Lennon biographies before. Philip Norman's I like. There's a couple others out there. This one I thought was my favorite because of the way that it is. This is somebody who knew John Lennon not super well, but they had.
Well, then I'm going to write one.
Well, it wasn't. I'm not saying like this is John Lennon's best friend or something, but he had personal experience and had enough there to kind of push it over the top to be a little bit more of a sentimental, emotional biography. And this one left me feeling a little bit more emotional about John Lennon's murder and the things that, we never got to see happen. We never really got to see him reunite with Paul McCartney. It was just all this potential that, even with what was accomplished, it just felt like we were just about at this place where we could have seen something really spectacular happen. And then, this senseless violence, and something about that in this book, not in any of the other Beatle or Lennon books I've read before has it affected me like this. But I thought Ray Connolly was able to just really get down to it. And for me, that made this my favorite of these kinds. So,
okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's a wrap. You're still trying to find a 2019, aren't you?
No, I'm trying to find my favorite book that I've read in 2019.
Oh.
Guess I don't have one.
You don't have a favorite?
No. The last 2 years I was looking pretty bad. Not a lot of 5 stars being handed out. A lot of 3 stars.
Ew.
So read a lot of 2 stars books.
Been there. Yeah.
One would say, nope, never mind.
Those are our favorite books of the last decade. We'd love to hear some of yours so we can share them in upcoming episodes. So you can always find us online at soundcloud.com/allthebooks. You can comment on the episodes there. Twitter at All the Book Show, Facebook David A. Howe Public Library. You can email us at wellsville@stls.org. We'd love to hear from you about what you thought of these books or favorite books of your own, so you can find us there. We've got some exciting stuff coming in